The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and despair. A sterile cage where dreams went to die. I sat by Emily's bedside, her hand limp in mine, her breathing shallow under the weight of machines. I'd given up everything, me job, my friends, my Lafido be her anchor. But I was drowning. My name is Daniel Harper, and I was 38 when the accident stole Emily's legs and my future. We'd been married 5 years. A love story born in a Chicago coffee shop where her laugh was louder than the espresso machine. She was a dancer, her body a symphony of grace, until a drunk driver turned our world to ash. Now, in this small Illinois town, I was her caregiver, her husband, her everything except whole myself. The first year was a blur of physical therapy, bills, and sleepless nights. I quit my job as a graphic designer to manage her care, selling our city apartment to afford a single-story house in Willow Creek. Friends drifted away, unable to handle the new us. I didn't blame them. I barely recognized myself. My days revolved around Emily's needs medication schedules, doctor visits, and the endless task of keeping her spirits up. But her smile, once my son, was fading, and I couldn't fix it. "Daniel," she whispered one night, her voice fragile. "You don't have to do this. You could leave." Her words cut deeper than any knife. Leave. I'd promised her forever, and I meant it. But the truth was, I was breaking. I hadn't laughed in months, hadn't felt anything but duty. I loved her, but love was a weight I carried alone. The town was small, the kind where everyone knew your story before you told it. I avoided the grocery store gossip, the pitying stares. But one day, I couldn't avoid him. Lucas Bennett, the new mechanic at Joe's auto shop, was leaning against my truck when I came out of the pharmacy, Emily's prescriptions in hand. He was in his late 30s, broad-shouldered, with a face that held stories he didn't share. His eyes, a deep hazel, met mine with an intensity that made my chest tighten. "Flat tire," he said, nodding at my truck. "Saw it when you pulled in. I can fix it if you've got a minute." His voice was calm, like he'd seen worse than a stranded man with too many bags. I nodded, too tired to argue. He worked fast, his hands steady, and when he was done, he waved off my offer to pay. "On me," he said. "You look like you're carrying enough." I didn't know what to say. No one had noticed minute realign years. But Lucas did, and that moment cracked something open inside me. Over the next few weeks, I saw him everywhere. At the diner, where he'd nod from across the counter. At the hardware store, where he'd ask about Emily with a sincerity that didn't feel like pity. He was new to Willow Creek, a drifter who'd settled after years on the road. He didn't talk much about his past, but his quiet strength was a lifeline I didn't know I needed. One evening, Emily had a bad day, pain so intense she cried for hours. I was helpless, my patience fraying. After she finally slept, I escaped to the porch, beer in hand, staring at the stars. Lucas appeared, as if summoned, his truck pulling up unannounced. "Heard from Joe you've had a rough one," he said, sitting beside me. He didn't ask questions, didn't push. He just sat there, his presence a steady anchor in my storm. We talked about nothing, about everything. He told me about fixing cars in a dozen states, about the freedom of the road, about the loneliness that followed. I told him about Emily's laugh, about the life we'd planned, about the guilt that ate me alive for wanting more than this. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as Emily's husband, not as the guy who'd lost everything, but as Daniel. Just Daniel. The next morning, Emily noticed. "You're different today," she said, her eyes searching mine. "Lighter." I brushed it off. But she was right. Lucas had stirred something in me, a spark of life I thought was gone. But with that spark came fear. I was married. I loved Emily. So why did my heart race when Lucas smiled? Days turned to weeks, and Lucas became a constant. He'd drop by with tools to fix a creaky door or a coffee when I looked like I hadn't slept. Emily liked him, too. She'd tease him about his flannel obsession, and he'd laugh, his eyes crinkling in a way that made my stomach flip. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was gratitude, not attraction. But every time he left, I felt the ache of his absence. One night, after a particularly brutal day, Lucas found me at the town's only bar. I was 3 whiskeys in, drowning my guilt. "You're not failing her," he said, his voice low but firm. "You're human, Daniel. You're allowed to feel." His hand brushed mine, just for a second, and it was like lightning. I pulled away, heart pounding, and left without a word. But I couldn't unfeel the warmth, the want, the terror of what it meant. I lay awake that night, Emily sleeping beside me, her wheelchair a silent sentinel. I'd given up my life for her. But what was I giving up now? And who was I, if not the man who'd promised to stay? The days after that night at the bar were a tightrope walk. I avoided Lucas, dodging his calls, skipping the diner where he'd be nursing a black coffee. But Willow Creek was too small to hide forever, and my heart was too loud to ignore. Emily's condition was a roller coaster. Some days, she'd paint with me in the living room, her hands steady enough to hold a brush, her smile almost like before. Others, pain pinned her to the bed, and I'd sit helpless, reading her favorite novels aloud to drown out her quiet sobs. I loved her fiercely, but love wasn't enough to stop the cracks spreading through me. I was a man split in 2, devoted husband, restless soul. One afternoon, I was fixing the ramp outside our house, sweat soaking my shirt, when Lucas's truck rolled up. My stomach knotted, but I couldn't look away. He stepped out, toolbox in hand, his flannel sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms dusted with dark hair. "Thought you might need a hand," he said, his tone casual but his eyes searching. I muttered something about managing fine, but he stayed, hammering nails with a precision that made my clumsy efforts look amateur. We worked in silence, the air thick with unspoken words. When we finished, he handed me a bottle of water, his fingers brushing mine. I froze, the memory of that barroom touch flooding back. "Daniel," he said softly, "you don't have to run from me." I wanted to deny it, to say I wasn't running, but the lie stuck in my throat. Instead, I turned away, muttering about needing to check on Emily. Inside, she was napping, her face peaceful for once. I stood in the doorway, guilt clawing at me. I'd vowed to be her rock, but Lucas was shaking my foundation. That night, I dreamed of him, his hands, his voice, the way he looked at me like I was more than a caretaker. I woke up gasping, Emily's steady breathing beside me a reminder of my promises. The next week, Emily's physical therapist suggested a new treatment in Chicago. Expensive but promising. I spent hours on the phone with insurance, my frustration boiling over. When Lucas showed up with dinner homemade chili, of all things, I nearly snapped at him to leave. But Emily's face lit up, and she insisted he stay. Over dinner, he told stories of his nomadic days, making her laugh in a way I hadn't heard in years. I watched them, my heart a battlefield of gratitude and jealousy. "You're good for him," Emily said to Lucas after dessert, her voice teasing but sharp. He glanced at me, his expression unreadable, and I felt exposed, like she'd seen the truth I was hiding. Later, as he helped me clean up, he leaned close, his voice low. "She's stronger than you think, Daniel. So are you." His words were a lifeline, but I didn't know if I could grab it. The Chicago trip loomed, a financial and emotional weight. I took odd jobs, design gigs. Handyman work to scrape together the money. Lucas started showing up more, fixing things around the house without being asked, always with that quiet steadiness. One evening, he caught me staring at a photo of Emily dancing, taken before the accident. She was something else, I said, my voice thick. She still is, he replied, standing closer than necessary. And so are you. His hand rested on my shoulder, and I didn't pull away. For a moment, we stood there, the world narrowing to the warmth of his touch. Then Emily called from the bedroom, and I stepped back, reality crashing in. The night before we left for Chicago, I found Lucas at the bar again. I wasn't drinking this time, just needed air. He was there, nursing a beer, his eyes finding me like they always did. You're scared, he said. Not a question. I nodded, unable to lie. Scared of the treatment failing, of losing Emily, of what I felt for him. He didn't push, just sat with me, his presence a quiet promise. In Chicago, the hospital was a maze of hope and bureaucracy. Emily was optimistic, her courage humbling me. I held her hand through every test, every consultation, but my mind wandered to Lucas. His texts, simple check-ins about the house. The weather felt like anchors. I hated myself for needing them. The treatment showed promise, but it drained us. Back in Willow Creek, Emily slept more, her body adjusting. I was exhausted, fraying at the edges. Lucas showed up with coffee one morning, catching me on the porch. You can't keep doing this alone, he said, his voice firm. Let me help. I wanted to say no, to keep my walls up, but I was too tired. I let him into the house, into my life, into the mess of my heart. That night, as we sat on the couch, Emily asleep upstairs, he looked at me with an intensity that stole my breath. Daniel, he said, you're allowed to want something for yourself. His hand found mine, and this time, I didn't pull away. The kiss that followed was soft, tentative, but it shattered me. I was a married man, but in that moment, I was just Daniel, alive for the first time in years. The kiss lingered like a secret I couldn't unlearn. I pulled back, heart hammering, Lucas's eyes searching mine in the dim light of the living room. I can't, I whispered, but my voice betrayed me, trembling with want. I avoided him for days, throwing myself into Emily's care. Her new treatment was working, small victories, like her gripping a paintbrush without pain. But every moment of joy was shadowed by guilt. I loved Emily, but Lucas had woken something in me I couldn't bury. I was a traitor to my vows, to her, to myself. Willow Creek's gossip mill churned. At the diner, I overheard whispers about that new mechanic and poor Daniel's burden. I ignored them, but the weight of their eyes followed me. Emily noticed my distance, her gaze sharp despite her fatigue. What's wrong, Dan? She asked one morning, her voice soft but piercing. I lied, said it was stress, but her silence told me she wasn't fooled. Lucas didn't push. He kept his distance, but his presence was everywhere. Tools left on the porch, a note with his number tucked into my toolbox. I wanted to hate him for complicating my life, but I couldn't. He was the only one who saw me breaking and didn't look away. One rainy afternoon, Emily's wheelchair got stuck in the mud outside the library. I was struggling to free it when Lucas appeared, his truck splashing through puddles. He didn't ask, just knelt in the rain, working the wheel free with steady hands. Emily thanked him, her smile genuine, but her eyes flicked between us, sensing something I couldn't name. That night, she confronted me. You're different with him, she said, her voice calm but firm. Like you're alive again. I froze, my throat tight. I'm not going anywhere, I said, but it sounded hollow. She reached for my hand, her grip weak but deliberate. I want you to be happy, Daniel, even if it's not with me. Her words broke me. I cried, not for her pain, but for the truth she'd seen before I could. I found Lucas at the auto shop the next day, grease on his hands, his face lighting up when he saw me. We need to talk, I said, my voice unsteady. We walked to the edge of town, where the fields stretched endless under a gray sky. I told him about Emily, about my guilt, about the man I didn't recognize in the mirror. He listened, his silence a gift. When I finished, he said, I'm not asking you to choose, Daniel. I just want you to know you're not alone. His words were a lifeline, but they terrified me. I was married, bound by promises I'd made in a church, in love, in a life that no longer existed. But Lucas was here, real and present, and I couldn't stop wanting him. We stood there, the wind carrying my indecision, and when he touched my arm, I didn't pull away. The next weeks were a blur of stolen moments. A coffee shared in his truck, a late-night talk on my porch, his hand brushing mine as we fixed a fence. Each touch was a rebellion, a step toward a truth I wasn't ready to face. Emily knew I saw it in her quiet smiles, her gentle questions. She never accused, never pushed, but her acceptance was a knife in my heart. One evening, Lucas invited us to a town barbecue. Emily insisted we go, her first outing in months. She shone, laughing with neighbors, her wheelchair no barrier to her charm. Lucas stayed close, helping without making it obvious, his eyes finding mine across the crowd. I felt alive, but the guilt was a shadow I couldn't shake. Later, as we walked home, Emily took my hand. You love him, she said. Not a question. I stopped, my breath catching. I love you, I said, desperate. She smiled, sad but sure. You can love us both, Daniel, but you can't live half a life. Her words were a gift and a curse, freeing me and binding me all at once. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch, staring at the stars, Lucas's number glowing on my phone. I typed a message, then deleted it. What could I say? I was a man torn between duty and desire, between the woman who needed me and the man who saw me. The choice was coming, and I wasn't ready. The truth hung between us like a storm waiting to break. Emily's words, "You can love us both," echoed in my mind, but they didn't make the choice easier. I was a man divided, and every step toward Lucas felt like a betrayal of her. Winter crept into Willow Creek, blanketing the town in frost. Emily's treatment was progressing, her pain less frequent, but the cost was relentless. I took on more freelance work, my nights spent hunched over a laptop, designing logos for strangers while my own life unraveled. Lucas was a constant, his presence a quiet rebellion against my isolation. He'd bring soup when Emily was too weak to eat, fix the furnace when it groaned, sit with me when words failed. One night, as snow fell outside, Emily asked me to take her to the community center's art show. She'd painted again, her first piece since the accident, and wanted to share it. I was proud, but nervous crowds were hard for her, and I was raw from dodging Lucas. At the show, her painting a vibrant abstract of hope and lost drew gasps. She glowed, and for a moment, I saw the woman I'd married. Lucas was there, his flannel swapped for a clean sweater, his eyes finding me across the room. He congratulated Emily, his warmth genuine. But when he looked at me, I felt the pull. Later, as I helped Emily into the truck, he slipped me a note, "Meet me at the lake. Midnight." I crumpled it, but didn't throw it away. At home, Emily was quiet, her eyes distant. "You should go," she said, reading my mind. I protested, but she held up a hand. "Daniel, I'm not blind. I see how he looks at you. Go." Her permission was a weight, not a relief. I left, my heart a tangle of fear and need. The lake was still, moonlight glinting off the ice. Lucas was there, his breath visible in the cold. "I'm not good at this," he said, his voice low. "But I can't stop thinking about you." I wanted to run, to hide, but his honesty pinned me. I told him about Emily's words, about my guilt, about the life I'd promised her. He listened, then stepped closer. "You're not betraying her by living, Daniel." When he kissed me, it was fierce, desperate, and I kissed him back, the world falling away. The next morning, guilt crashed over me. Emily was awake, painting, her face serene. "Did you go?" she asked, not looking up. I nodded, unable to lie. She smiled, small but real. "Good. You deserve to feel something." Her grace was unbearable. I wanted to scream, to beg her to hate me, but she just kept painting. Lucas and I fell into a rhythm, stolen glances, quiet talks, moments that felt like theft. I was falling for him, but every touch was a reminder of my vows. Emily's health improved, her spirit stronger, but she was watching me, waiting for a choice I couldn't make. One evening, she handed me a letter, her handwriting shaky but clear. "Read it later," she said, her eyes soft. I opened it that night, alone on the porch. "Daniel, I love you, but I'm letting you go. You've given me everything, but you're dying inside. Be free. Be happy. Emily." Tears blurred the words. She'd seen my heart before I could name it, and she was setting me free. But freedom felt like betrayal. I found Lucas at the shop, his hands buried in an engine. "She knows," I said, my voice breaking. "She's letting me go." He stopped, his eyes searching mine. "What do you want, Daniel?" For the first time, I didn't have an answer. I loved Emily, but I was in love with him. The truth was a wound, and I didn't know how to heal it. Emily's letter burned in my pocket, a quiet detonation of my world. I loved her, but Lucas had become my oxygen. The choice wasn't just mine, Anna Marie, it was ours, and it was tearing us apart. Spring arrived, softening Willow Creek's edges. Emily's health stabilized, her paintings filling the house with color. She was reclaiming herself, but I was losing my grip. Lucas and I met in secret walks by the lake. Late night drives, each moment a stolen breath. I told myself it was temporary, a phase, but every kiss deepened the lie. One morning, Emily asked me to take her to Chicago for a follow-up. The drive was quiet, her gaze fixed on the passing fields. At the hospital, the doctor was optimistic her mobility was improving, her pain manageable. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. On the way home, she spoke. "I'm going to stay with my sister for a while," she said. "You need space to figure this out." I protested, but she was resolute. "I'm not leaving you, Daniel. I'm giving you room to live." She left the next week, her sister's car pulling away as I stood on the porch, hollowed out. Lucas found me there, his presence a question I couldn't answer. "She's right," he said, his voice steady. "You need to know what you want." I wanted to scream that I wanted both her safety, his love, but the words wouldn't come. With Emily gone, the house was a ghost town. I threw myself into work, but Lucas was everywhere, his scent in the truck, his tools in the shed. One night, he showed up with pizza, his smile tentative. We ate in silence, the air heavy. "I'm not going anywhere," he said finally, "but I won't push you." His patience was a gift I didn't deserve. Days bled into weeks. Emily called, her voice bright but distant, updating me on her progress. She was painting more, even teaching a class at her sister's community center. I was proud, but her absence sharpened my longing for Lucas. We started spending more time together fixing cars, watching old movies, sharing stories of lives we'd left behind. He told me about his first love, a man who'd broken his heart in Seattle, and I shared memories of Emily's dance recitals, her grace a light I'd chased. One evening, we drove to the lake, the stars bright above us. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice raw. I don't know how to do this without hurting her. Lucas took my hand, his thumb tracing circles. You're not a bad person for wanting to be happy, Daniel. His kiss was slow, deliberate, and I let myself fall into it, the guilt quieter for once. But Willow Creek wasn't blind. Whispers grew louder. Neighbors saw us together, their stares sharp. At the diner, a regular muttered something about that kind of thing not belonging here. Lucas shrugged it off, but I felt exposed. My life a headline in a town too small to hide. Emily returned a month later, her wheelchair less a barrier now. She looked stronger, her eyes clear. I've been thinking, she said over dinner, her voice steady. I want us to be honest. All of us. I froze, realizing she meant Lucas too. The next night, she invited him over. The air was thick as we sat at the table. Three people bound by love and impossible choices. I'm not angry, Emily said, looking at us both. I want you to be happy, Daniel. And I think he makes you happy. Lucas reached for my hand, and I let him, tears burning my eyes. Emily smiled, but it was laced with pain. I'm not giving up on us, she said, but I'm not your cage. That night, I lay awake, her words echoing. Lucas was asleep beside me, his breathing steady. I loved them both. But love wasn't a simple equation. Emily had given me freedom, but could I take it without breaking her? Emily's words at that dinner table were a seismic shift. She wasn't my cage, but I was still trapped by guilt, by love, by the life I'd built around her. Lucas was my escape, but every step toward him felt like abandoning her. Summer settled over Willow Creek, the air thick with heat and possibility. Emily threw herself into her art, her paintings bolder, her spirit fierce. She was teaching more, even talking about a gallery show. I was proud, but her strength made my indecision sharper. Lucas and I were careful around her, our touches hidden, but she saw everything. Her silence wasn't judgment, it was space, and that hurt more. One afternoon, Lucas and I were fixing a neighbor's fence when a truck slowed. A man yelling slurs from the window. Lucas didn't flinch, but I felt the sting. The town's eyes on us. Ignore them, he said, his hand on my arm. But I couldn't. Willow Creek was home, but it was also a mirror, reflecting my fear back at me. Emily noticed. People talk, she said one evening, her voice calm. They always will. Don't let them decide who you are. Her wisdom was a gift, but it didn't ease the knot in my chest. I was living two lives, one with her, one with Lucas, and neither felt whole. Lucas pushed me to face it. We'd drive to the lake, talk for hours, his honesty cutting through my defenses. You're not betraying her by loving me, he said one night, his eyes fierce. She wants you to live. Daniel. Really live. I wanted to believe him, but the ring on my finger was a tether I couldn't break. Emily's gallery show was the turning point. The community center was packed, her paintings lighting up the room. She moved through the crowd with grace, her wheelchair an extension of her strength. Lucas was there, helping with setup, his pride in her as clear as mine. When she spoke, thanking me for my support. Her eyes locked on mine, then flicked to Lucas. And to those who remind us to keep living, she added, her voice steady. The room applauded, but I felt exposed. Her words a quiet blessing. After, Lucas and I walked to the lake. The night warm and heavy. She's incredible, he said, his voice soft. And so are you. I kissed him, desperate, the weight of her words pushing me forward. But when I got home, Emily was waiting. I'm filing for divorce, she said, her voice calm but final. Not because I don't love you, but because I do. I begged her to reconsider, but she was resolute. You've given me everything, Daniel. Now give yourself something. Tears fell as she held my hand, her strength humbling me. The papers came the next week, each signature a cut. Lucas was there, steady but quiet, letting me grieve. The divorce wasn't anger, it was love in its rawest form. Emily moved to her sisters, her art thriving, her life her own. Lucas and I were together, but it wasn't simple. The town's whispers grew louder, and I struggled with the freedom Emily had given me. I loved Lucas, but her absence was a wound that wouldn't heal. One evening, Lucas took me to the lake, a blanket spread under the stars. You're enough, he said, his hand in mine. You always were. For the first time, I believed him. I was Daniel, not just a husband, not just a caregiver, but a man who could love and be loved. The divorce papers were signed, but freedom felt like a foreign language. Emily was gone, her paintings the only echo of her in our house. Lucas was my present, but her absence was my past, and I was caught between them. Fall painted Willow Creek in reds and golds, a beauty I barely noticed. Lucas moved in, his tools mingling with mine, his laughter filling the quiet. We were building something love, a life, but guilt shadowed every moment. I'd loved Emily with everything, and letting her go felt like failing her, even if she'd set me free. The town didn't make it easier. Whispers turned to stares, and a few clients dropped my design work, their excuses thin. Lucas shrugged it off, his strength a contrast to my doubt. We don't need their approval, he said one night, his arms around me. But I wanted it, craved the normalcy I'd lost long before him. Emily called weekly, her voice bright with news of her art, her life. She'd sold a painting, was teaching more classes. I'm okay, Daniel, she'd say, and I believed her. But it didn't ease the ache. I visited her at her sister's, saw her thriving, and it both lifted and broke me. She hugged me, her wheelchair no longer a barrier, and said, "You're allowed to be happy." I nodded, but happiness felt like a debt I couldn't pay. Lucas pushed me to live. We fixed up the house, planted a garden, took drives to nowhere. He taught me to change a car's oil, laughing when I got grease everywhere. I taught him to sketch, his rough hands surprising me with delicate lines. We were learning each other, but I was still learning myself. One night, a brick shattered our window, a note tied to it, "Leave." Lucas was calm, cleaning up the glass, but I saw the hurt in his eyes. The next day, he fixed the window, his jaw tight. "We stay," he said, and I nodded, but fear lingered. Willow Creek was home, but it was also a battleground. Emily heard about it and called, furious. "You don't deserve this," she said. "Neither does he." She insisted on coming back, hosting a community art event to bridge the divide. The event was packed, her paintings a testament to her strength. She spoke about love, about resilience, and when she introduced Lucas and me as her family, the room went quiet, then clapped. It wasn't acceptance, but it was a start. Lucas and I grew closer, our love a quiet defiance. We cooked together, shared dreams, faced the stairs. But I still woke up reaching for Emily. Her absence a ghost. Lucas saw it. Never pushing. Just holding me through it. You don't have to forget her, he said. She's part of you. His words were a balm. But the wound was deep. By winter, Emily's show was a success. Her art in galleries across Illinois. She visited. Her smile brighter than ever. I'm proud of you, she told me. Her hand on mine. Both of you. Lucas joined us. And for a moment, we were three people who'd loved through pain, bound by something bigger than ourselves. That night, Lucas proposed not with a ring, but with a promise. I want a life with you, he said, his voice steady. Whatever that looks like. I said yes, tears falling, because I finally saw a life where love wasn't a cage, but a choice. Saying yes to Lucas didn't erase the past, but it built a bridge to the future. Willow Creek was still a battlefield, but we were fighting together. Emily's love had set me free, and Lucas's love was teaching me to live. Spring returned. The town softer now, the stairs less sharp. Emily's art event had shifted something. Neighbors stopped by, some with apologies, others with curiosity. Lucas and I were open, holding hands at the diner. Our love no longer a secret. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Emily thrived. Her paintings in galleries. Her name in art circles. She visited often. Our friendship a new kind of love. She'd tease Lucas about his cooking. Laugh with me about old times. Her wheelchair was part of her, but not her whole story. She was Emily artist. Survivor. My first love. Lucas and I built a life small. Messy. Real. We adopted a dog. A mutt who chewed our shoes but loved us fiercely. I started designing again. My work bolder. Inspired by both of them. Lucas opened his own shop. His hands still steady. His heart still mine. One evening, we hosted a barbecue. Emily included. The backyard was alive with laughter. Neighbors mingling. The air warm with possibility. Emily raised a glass. Her eyes bright. To love, she said, in all its forms. Lucas squeezed my hand, and I felt the weight lifting, the freedom settling. Years later, I stood by the lake with Lucas, our dog chasing fireflies. Emily was there, her latest painting a gift for our home. We were a family, not bound by vows but by choice, by love that had survived pain and prejudice. I'd given up my life for Emily, but she'd given it back. And Lucas saved me, not by fixing me, but by showing me I was whole. The stars above us were bright, the water still. I looked at Lucas, at Emily, and knew I was home. Love wasn't a cage or a sacrifice, it was a gift. And I'd finally learned to accept it.